Casey Hunt as well on Capitol. Question for Republicans, not whether they have a plan to replace the Affordable Care Act. They have a lot of plans. It's whether they have a plan that can get 218 votes from party members. Chris Collins is a Republican congressman from New York. He is also a member of the president-elect's transition team. Here's what he said today.
We have 6 or 7 different replacement plans we've talked about, right from day one. There's some common parts in that, but we're going to have to, over the next 6 months, put that pen to paper, and we're going to do it in a open process, regular order, through committees, through hearings, and when it comes to pass, I'm confident we do have 218, but we don't have that plan in front of us today.
Plan right now. Dr. Raul Ruiz is a Democratic congressman from California. Before the election, he was an MD specializing in emergency room medicine. He provides a very unique perspective. That's why we invited you today, Congressman. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, let's start with that meeting. Take us inside that meeting with President Obama. What did he say about defending the Affordable Care Act?
Well, it wasn't necessarily about defending the Affordable Care Act or his legacy. It was about defending the American people, defending my patients that I have seen and all of our constituents from East Coast, West Coast, and everybody in between from the harmful policies that the Republican Party want to instill. Repealing the Affordable Care Act will harm millions. More than 20 million people who have health insurance, will raise health care costs, will put middle-class working families from across our great nation into financial ruin. And that was the topic of conversation today.
Did he help with strategy?
I think that we talked about the importance of telling stories. And I'll tell you a story of a young man who had ulcerative colitis. First time in his life was able to get affordable health care and not be discriminated against. The Republicans want to take us back to old failed policies where insurance companies will now discriminate against people with diabetes, chronic pulmonary diseases, raise their health care costs and even deny them health care costs and put back lifetime limits on what they will cover to benefit their profits and not the health and well-being of the American people.
What do you say to those who have criticized President Obama for not doing enough to defend the law from the beginning? Even Democrats who have said that that is one of the reasons that they lost both houses while he was in office.
Well, I've said from the beginning as a physician that we have to keep the good, change the bad, and get rid of the ugly.
What's the bad?
Some of the bads could be the health care costs that are out of control. Premiums were going up at a much higher rate than the Affordable Care Act. But if we start pointing the blame into the Affordable Care Act for high premiums, then we're not going to really look at the root cause. And the root cause is the out-of-control health care costs. Republicans want to take us back to a time where healthcare costs were even more out of control, and that would only lead us to financial ruin because premiums will go even higher. And that means that they will have to own that, and it will be on their shoulders now why the American people are going to pay even higher premiums than before the Affordable Care Act.
What else would you support in terms of a fix?
Well, I believe, for example, one of my bills that I've introduced was to give small businesses relief in terms of the business mandate. Individuals have the opportunity to claim economic hardship and be exempted from the individual mandate. So too do I believe that small businesses who meet a certain set of criteria, whether or not they will have to keep their businesses open, whether or not they were going to be on the brink of declaring bankruptcy, those small businesses should also be exempt from the mandates that they have.
Paul Ryan today, as you know, talked about a transition period. That's the language that the speaker used. Vice President-elect Pence, he talked about an orderly strategy. Reading between the lines there, what did you hear their strategy to be in terms of a replacement?
So they have no new plan. They have old ideas that have failed and that caused everybody to take action with the Affordable Care Act. What we are hearing is they them wanting to delay in order to evade the responsibility that they will have, because even they know that repealing the Affordable Care Act is going to harm over 20 million people who have health insurance for the first time. The people that rely on the Medicaid expansions in even Republican states that now have health insurance for the very first time. Young people being able to stay on their parents' health insurance. Women paying equal as men in their health insurance as well. Insurance companies not being able to discriminate against real people who have chronic health conditions. You know, we need to put front and center the human story of patients that visit the emergency department day in and day out.
With all due respect, Congressman, yes. I mean, you could argue that you guys have had the better part of 8 years to sell that part of the story, 7 years. There are a lot of folks who have suggested that that's one of the major reasons that Obamacare has become as unpopular as it is in large swaths of this country. That, and of course, the misinformation campaign.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on that, and I think that from this point moving forward, we need to talk about the American people, and this is the time that all those who have benefited the more than 20 million people across our nation in red states and blue states and east, west coast, and everybody in between need to call their representatives right now and their senators to express their anxiety about the fact that they're on the verge of losing their health insurance.
Congressman and Dr. Raul Ruiz. Congressman, we hope you'll come back. Thank you.